My regular listeners will know you're somebody who's been fighting a lot of the lockdown measures over the last 16 months or so, and a lot of the measures that are still in place affecting ordinary lives and people's businesses, despite the fact that, we ended step 4, we're supposed to be back completely to normal. We're still not back to normal. People constantly having to test, people being pinged, people deleting this app. I mean, I don't know why anyone had the app. I don't know why people didn't delete it a long time ago. We know lots of people have, but the government finally did actually say they were going to make it less sensitive, which does seem to have seen a lot fewer people getting pinged. So that's at least some good news.
I think it is. I think it's all round good news. I think fewer people probably have the app because I think some have deleted it.
Yeah.
I think the infections are probably on the way down. Clearly, the app itself is less sensitive. Essential workers are now in a different category. So hopefully organisations, be they the NHS or businesses, will have fewer people self-isolating and therefore will be able to function better and give proper service to the public. So it's pleasing to hear.
Exactly. I mean, it is just an attempt to get us back to normal. Travel news, of course, earlier this week, and a lot of these changes coming in at 4:00 on Sunday morning. People actually being able to travel to a lot of the, with more certainty and not facing automatic self-isolation afterwards, with more certainty to the two biggest destinations, France and Spain. Spain, as in a normal year, 18 million Brits going there on their holes, 10 million to France. The attempt to get that back to normal. But of course, we've still got this massive big block in the way of all the costs of the PCR tests, all the admin involved, and again, that's still ongoing uncertainty. And the travel industry, we know, very much tied in with tourism, with what happens here in the UK. If people can't go abroad, other people can't come here easily, and it has a massive impact on firms across the board here in the UK, doesn't it?
It does, and it's been an awful summer for the travel trade, the second bad summer. I'd say this summer's been worse than last, and I guess some companies won't survive, sadly. And although it's very unfair for those people who do want to travel abroad but can't necessarily afford all the extra costs and things like tests, or indeed, they see a holiday as a relaxing occasion, something for fun, but the administration and the tests and the paperwork and the general stress of the fact that you might test positive or something and then the whole trip's off or the rules change means that I think for a lot of people they've either given up or are finding that going abroad is a pretty anxious experience, and it somewhat ruins the whole
I mean, I'm a travel aficionado, and my main thing is, if it's legal and I can go, I'm going to do it. But mainly, the more obstacles they put in my way, the more I have a sort of I'm not gonna let them win. I'm going to do it. But again, you have to be pretty confident about your ability. What could you work if you do have to self-isolate? We got pinged after the last flight from Test and Trace, but someone's sitting on the plane near us, and then legally obliged to isolate, and also being able to cope with the cost. If your airline, the flights can't go, so could you afford to have a voucher and not get your money back or lose the flights? And of course, the huge cost of these PCR tests. This is, we were talking to an airline expert earlier, this is, to all intents and purposes, a tax on travel, which only really affects people on ordinary and below average incomes, because the very rich, 80 quid, 100 quid, 200 quid here for some tests, not a problem. If I get pinged, I'll work from home in my lovely big home. Millions of people can't even think about risking that, and they certainly can't afford to pay often more for their PCR tests there and back than the cost of the flight.
Well, like so many of the restrictions, lockdowns and so forth that have affected us all over the last 18 months, it's discriminatory. Basically, the rich are fine and the less well-off, the less privileged suffer. And I think it is one of the worst consequences of all these government interventions in society is that they sort of don't care about the less well-off, the 10 million who've had to go out to work every day regardless, those who don't have a nice garden at home, those who can't afford all the tests to go abroad. And, it's pretty sickening, frankly, that you see an awful lot of people on the left who are tremendously keen on all the restrictions. And you do wonder, yes, they're probably well off enough that it doesn't affect them very much. Yeah. It's just those who are, haven't seen the value of their home go up, etc., etc.
Well, indeed. I mean,
and one feels it's a two-speed society that we've got now.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I wonder what you make of the Daily Mail front page. The height of hypocrisy. They've got revealed climate minister. This is Alok Sharma. President's climate czar. He's the man who's leading all these issues when it comes to the COP26, the climate summit. Climate minister jetted to 30 nations in the last 7 months. I mean, bearing in mind, quite a lot of that time it was actually illegal to travel to most nations, or indeed anywhere. For quite a few months, it was illegal to leave the country for the most of us, for most of lockdown 3. 6 of those 30 nations were on red lists. And while other travellers face crippling costs of quarantine, he hasn't isolated once. Yet another case of one rule for us, another rule for them.
Yes, I'm afraid to say that there have been so many examples of not all in this together. The great lie of the whole episode, I'm afraid. The government and the elite and the rich and the establishment have sailed above it all. So, of course, they approve of lockdowns and all the restrictions because it's keeping them safe.
Yes, exactly. Again, that classic line from a commentator in New York that we haven't had a lockdown. We've had rich, middle-class people sitting at home while poor people, working-class people, bring them things. That's what it's been.
Right.
Can I also talk to you actually about America generally? We are seeing case rates going up for Delta, and that's one of the reasons why we had that surge, the third wave this summer, as that Delta variant came in originally from India. We've seen that Delta variant spread around the world. It's even in Australia, for goodness sake. Fortress Australia, quarantined for 2 weeks just to get in the country, even for Australians. We're seeing a big surge in cases in America, particularly in Florida, where it is hit hard and case rates are going up. We didn't hear pretty much in the mainstream media anything at all about Florida in the 10 months when Florida has been reopened by Governor DeSantis. All the time when case rates went up in the winter and then went down again, and you've seen really low rates and people going to concerts, living freely, kids are at school, everyone's at work, no mask mandate, all of that. People living life really, really normally. And for 10 months, not having any big issues at all. And those case rates, when they did go up in the winter, going down again without any lockdown, without any mask mandate. For some reason, not worthy of any coverage by any of our British mainstream media. Case rates have gone up in Florida. Guess what? Saw a report on Sky News all about how terrible things are in Florida yesterday. It's interesting, isn't it, that the unwillingness of many in the media and politics here in this country, and indeed supposedly experts in this field, they don't think it's interesting that the not having a lockdown took 10 months for cases in Florida to go up. What do you make of it all?
I think it's very distressing that it appears to me that some people are willing, places like Florida, which have respected people's freedoms and have not adopted these draconian restrictions, they're almost willing them to have hospitalizations and deaths. They're almost cheering on the fact that they've got a bad wave there at the moment. And they are so obsessed about being proved right about all these terrible restrictions we've had to tolerate that they would see people die for it. And I think it's depressing. The fact of the matter is the demographics of Florida, it's a very elderly state by comparison to many others. And as we know, the disease is essentially a disease of the elderly and the infirm. And that's probably one of the big reasons why it's being hit hard.
Indeed, but it's fascinating that that the case rate went up and went down without any lockdown, without any mask mandate. We're saying that people saying, well, they need to have a mask mandate. That's why the cases are going up. But of course, cases have been going up in states where they have had a mask mandate as well. It is extraordinary how many people are willing to ignore the facts right in front of them. And again, our case rates gone up, gone down, despite us coming out of lockdown. And again, there seems to be widespread disappointment among the doom mongers that they haven't been proved right about thousands of people more dying because we came out of lockdown.
I think the experts suffer from the illusion of control. They think that what they're doing makes all the difference. I accept very much that the vaccine has dramatically transformed things. But other than that, I genuinely think that the lockdowns and most of the other restrictions make a marginal difference, I'm afraid. And that it's simply the desire of the politicians and the public health specialists to be seen to be right and to do something. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think what this tends to lead is a great deal of collateral damage in our lives, which we're all very familiar with. but not much impact on the virus.
Indeed. And again, I just hoping the government, they stood firm against the doommongers this time round, even after the delay after a month. And of course, this is the first time we've actually been able to prove the doommongers were 100% wrong. And so hopefully they'll stand firm again this autumn. I'm not putting much money on it, though, I have to say.